This is not a drill. Our industry is under attack. Hundreds of thousands of OnlyFans creators' Instagram accounts are being flagged, suspended, and banned for reasons that seem completely random. Child exploitation bans on creators in their 40s. Accounts with no previous violation suddenly getting 10 content flags in a single day. Accusations of scams or frauds on accounts that don't even have a link in bio. Or, worst of all, dozens of accounts getting banned all at once, even when they were created on separate IPs. I have bad news and good news. The bad news is that getting hit with just one of these restrictions can cripple your most important funnel and tank your revenue overnight. Instagram is the single largest organic traffic source for most OFMs, and you might follow all of the rules and still get hit with these enforcement actions, simply because you don't actually know what's going on behind the scenes. The good news is that there are several perfectly rational reasons that all of this is happening, and it might surprise you to hear that not only is OnlyFans not the intended target of these bans, but if you take a few minutes to watch this video, understand those reasons, and take some very simple precautions, you can protect your pages, your models, and your business from one of the biggest ban waves in Instagram history. First things first, I want to get the doomer shit out of the way. This is not the end of Instagram for OnlyFans. Ban waves are not a new phenomenon, they're a cycle, and OFMs have been dealing with them for as long as the business has existed. A lot of what's happening now has actually been building up for some time, and unfortunately for us, we're in the middle of a perfect shitstorm that's been brewing since early 2024. It will pass eventually, but this video is about what to do in the meantime. There are two huge macro reasons why bans in general have increased over the last year and a half or so, and the reason that this matters is that if you understand what specific red flags they're looking for, you will be able to dodge them. The first major reason is that Instagram is currently engaged in lawsuits with 41 state attorneys general and are looking down the barrel of a bill called the Kids Online Safety Act. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. What you need to know is that if they lose these suits, it's extremely bad news for Meta that's going to require a total restructuring of their platforms, which is an outcome that they want to avoid at all costs. Meta's solution is a better safe than sorry approach to moderation. If Meta accidentally serves softcore porn to kids or fails to detect child sexual exploitation taking place on their platforms, which is a legitimate and serious risk given how many minors use social media and how many fucked up people there are out there, they face billion-dollar lawsuits, congressional hearings, and existential regulatory action. If they wrongly ban 600,000 OnlyFans creators, it might piss off some of their user base, but that's a lot cheaper than the alternative. I'll get way more specific and tactical later in the video, but the best way to avoid this is to completely stop posting sexually explicit content on the platform. The second thing that they're looking for is romance scams, also called pig butchering. If you're not familiar with this term, it's a form of fraud where a person or organization spends weeks, months, or years establishing a romantic relationship with a target, fattening the pig. Once trust is built, the scammer will typically ask for a large sum of money, using some sort of story like, I need legal fees to get a visa, or I need to pay off debts to mobsters, whatever story they think is going to get them the most cash. And then once the target pays, the scammer disappears forever. Estimates for the total amount of money lost to pig butchering scams in the last 2 years are in the tens of billions, and Meta does not want to be perceived as a facilitator of these scams by federal regulators. Since romance scammers are typically based in a country other than their victims, prosecuting them involves international enforcement agencies, and the last thing Meta wants is for someone to get scammed on their platform and then have to give the feds access to their infrastructure. So the question is, why is this relevant to us? And the answer is that Meta uses a two-element test to detect scammers. If an account displays a pattern of sexually suggestive elements like sexual poses, clothing, or emojis, combined with solicitation indicators like external links, DM me language, and references to outside payments, it gets flagged. Either element alone might be okay. The combination triggers enforcement. If you haven't figured it out already, this is especially impactful for OnlyFans because so much of the language that OFMs and creators tend to use exactly mimics the language and tactics used by scammers. That doesn't sound very good when you say it out loud, does it? In any case, this is why you've likely seen an increase in identity verification requests. If Meta suspects that you're behaving in a manner similar to a scammer, they're going to flag you instantly and force you to prove that you are who you say you are. So you understand now why this is happening at a macro level. But what's more important for us from a business perspective is how they are handling enforcement at a mechanistic level. How are they identifying identifying unwanted behaviors, and what are the actual actions they're taking, and most importantly, how can we protect our accounts from this ban wave? And it turns out that there have been 3 major changes in Meta's moderation practices that have taken place over the last 2 years, all of which directly impact OnlyFans creators, especially the third and most recent. Change 1 is Meta's AI content monitoring system. Meta can't just wait for people to report content to take action on it. If there are sex pests and criminals lurking on their platform and they might be liable for that behavior, they have to proactively seek that content out before it becomes a problem. Because of this, of Meta's roughly 78,000 employees, over 40,000 are in trust and safety, their moderation department. That is a colossal headcount and a colossal expense. Assuming that these people make, let's say, $50,000 a year on average, in reality it's likely higher, that's $2 billion a year for a business function that generates 0 revenue. The implication here is fairly obvious. Whatever the actual cost for all those trust and safety people are, it's cheaper than whatever the cost of lawsuits and regulation would be. However, that doesn't mean that Meta wants to set billions of dollars on fire just to satisfy regulators. So for the last decade, they've been incrementally moving towards automated moderation. The history of this tech is interesting, but what you need to know for now is that today, over 95% of what Meta calls proactive detection, flagging content before it gets reported, is done by AI. AI is an incredible technology, but for something as complex and nuanced as identifying terms of service violations through photos, videos, and text across a multi-billion user platform, it fails a lot. According to Meta's head of global affairs, Joel Kaplan, 1 to 2 out of every 10 enforcement actions may have been mistakes. A 10 to 20% error rate is tens of millions of innocent pieces of content getting flagged on a daily basis. Top of that, human moderators are increasingly getting laid off. This is both good news and bad news for us. The good news is that enforcement actions like suspensions or temporary restrictions, the kind of thing where you get a notification that an individual piece of content got flagged and you need to remove or appeal it, get resolved very quickly. Machine reports you delete the content or appeal, and oftentimes your account is back in good standing within an hour of you taking an action. The bad news is that for more serious enforcement actions like pages getting banned that actually do require human review and intervention, the process can take months or just not happen at all. I know of multiple creators with million-plus follower accounts that have gotten nuked over the last 2 months, and they haven't heard any follow-up besides an email that their appeal was received. The reality here is that the machines are always going to make mistakes. The single most critical change that you need to make is to make yourself as unappealing a target for those mistakes as possible. That means no more bikinis, no more flash trends, no more nip slips. You're going to have to learn to make content that keeps people's attention on its own merit rather than relying on cheap tricks and sex appeal. You can't trick a computer. It knows what bare skin looks like, and it's been trained to recognize sexually suggestive imagery. The era of thirst traps is over, and you're going to have to adapt and get creative if you want your accounts to survive. My entire YouTube channel is all about how to create legitimately good content that doesn't rely on cheap tricks and hypersexuality to build multi-million-dollar brands. So if you want to get better at it, be sure to subscribe and check out some of my other videos if you haven't already. The second change is bans on associated accounts. In OFM, this is already a fairly well-known principle, but recent changes have caught a lot of people off guard. So even if you think you understand this, stick around. Most people in this industry are familiar with the concept of IP hygiene. If you create multiple social media accounts under the same IP address, Meta flags those accounts as associated. And if one account gets banned, it's very likely that they all will. However, Meta has recently augmented the sophistication of their association recognition systems. I've seen a lot of anecdotal reports from agencies making 6 or 7 figures per month. Guys who I know with zero doubt have perfect IP hygiene, getting dozens of accounts chain banned in a single day, with seemingly no relationship to each other, sometimes even across different creators. Meta no longer only tracks IPs. Device IDs, advertising IDs, IP addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, SIM info, and behavioral biometrics all create invisible links between accounts in Meta's system. Meta has not publicly released any information about these new systems or methods of detection, so I've compiled, based on hundreds of articles, news stories, Meta whistleblower accounts, and confirmed anecdotal reports from agencies, everything that has actually led to these cascading bans. I can't promise this is everything out there, but it's everything that's known. The first is cascading bans via device or IP linking. This is confirmed. EFF documented Meta device fingerprinting. Multiple agency owners report losing all accounts managed from the same office or network on the same day. There's also the agency effect. If a VA logs into a model's account from a device that was never associated with the banned account, the model's account can go down. If you manage 20 accounts from the same office network, one ban can trigger a review cascade across all 20. One agency reported losing 40 plus accounts in a single day. Mass reporting as a weapon. This is a big one. Coordinated bot networks can target accounts with simultaneous violation reports, which cause instant suspension. And sometimes it can even just be a single pissed off fan or a competitor. Something else to be aware of, it's also a very well-known scam in OFM that's used by Meta rep services. People who claim to be able to ban or unban IG accounts. Do not, under any circumstances, use an Instagram unbanning service that does not have hundreds of vouches from trusted sources. Your best defense is to avoid shady service providers who are going to report your accounts so that you continue to pay them for unbanned services. There are also device level bans. Once a device is flagged, new accounts created on that device are banned within minutes. This is why using personal phones for client accounts is always a terrible idea. I already know a few agencies that have gotten their personal or even their agency's Instagram account banned because it was associated with a device with a model who got banned. There's not one neat solution to all of this because everyone handles account creation differently depending on the number of models they manage, scaling methodology, posting methodology, and so on. I would say that your best bet is to assume that Meta is smarter than you, that they're going to be able to associate accounts even if you follow most best practices and to act accordingly. One possible solution could be that if you refuse to take my advice and reduce the amount of sexual content you're posting, to at least classify and segregate accounts. One process for high-risk content, one process for low-risk content. But unfortunately, this is the one big unsolved puzzle, so if you have any suggestions for this or something that's worked for you, please link it in the comments. The third change is the biggest one and what I believe to be the catalyst for the current ban wave. Instagram recently made some changes to both their link in bio policy and how they analyze links in bio for violations. Everybody knows at this point that having a direct OnlyFans link in bio is a violation of Instagram's terms of service and it's going to result in a ban. However, having a link aggregator like Linktree or link.me is not. And the primary reason that Instagram has been the organic social platform of choice for most OnlyFans creators is that ability to have a clickable funnel directly on the creator's Instagram page, which was a huge advantage. Link in bio policies have changed several times in the last couple of years, escalating in kind of a call and response fashion. So for instance, when OnlyFans links were originally prohibited, OnlyFans managers implemented tools like bounce links and deep links that disguise the final destination of the OnlyFans page. This cycle of policy change and adaptation has been the standard for a few years. However, in 2026, Meta has upped their game and introduced two big changes at once. The first is related to destination crawling. This isn't technically new, but up until recently, whenever you updated your bio, Instagram's system crawls the destination URL automatically. However, Instagram recently implemented periodic rescanning. So it used to be the case that Instagram would check your link in bio for compliance only when links were added or changed. It would do that one-time check, and if you passed, you were good. Existing bio links are now periodically rescanned, not just checked at the time of update. The other big change is redirect following. The crawler now follows server-side redirects through link aggregators like Linktree or link.me to identify the final destination. So even if you have a deep link with an 18+ warning and multiple layers of redirects, Instagram is now following that link all the way through to its final endpoint, meaning it's much more difficult to disguise them. In addition, it means that just using a trusted link in bio provider no longer guarantees safety. I used to think that link.me was bulletproof, but these enforcement actions don't seem to care if you're using an established provider or not. This is a tricky one, but as of right now, there are two things that seem to be working consistently. I'm going to put a big disclaimer on this and say that I have no idea for how long these tricks will work, but so far, everyone I know who has used them has reported zero issues for over a month now. Our goal is to make Meta's job as hard as possible. Since previously whitelisted link in bio services are no longer safe, we can assume that Instagram has solved the TOS workarounds that those services have put in place. And that means that custom web pages with unique architecture are more likely to avoid Zuckerberg's Eye of Sauron for the time being. So today, for each and every model that you manage, you should create and host your own web pages rather than relying on link in bio services. Not just a redirect, but an actual website with content. Make sure that it's a clean domain with no adult keywords. And the cool thing about this is that you can take it as an opportunity to make something unique and flavorful that actually reinforces your model's brands and add unique features and functionality like link tracking that actually fucking works, unlike OnlyFans. The second tip is that Instagram's crawler seems to have a vulnerability. It does not execute JavaScript redirects. This makes sense. It's more computationally expensive to render JavaScript, and Meta is trying to do this as cheaply as possible and going after the lowest hanging fruit first. You might say, I'm not technical at all. How do I take advantage of these loopholes? And what I would recommend is consider this an excuse to start experimenting with tools like Claude Code. You can literally copy and paste the transcript of this video into a Claude Code session and ask it to make a website for one of your creators with these workarounds in plain English, and it'll do it for you in under 15 minutes. So the important thing to remember in all of this is that while Meta probably doesn't love that we're trying to sell adult content on their platform, they also aren't explicitly targeting OnlyFans creators. We're just collateral damage. It just happens to be the case that a lot of the common behavioral patterns that OnlyFans creators exhibit at a surface level line up with the groups that they're trying to target, namely romance scammers and sexual predators. My God, we are in a terrible industry. So the most important thing that you can possibly do right now is avoid the behaviors that resemble the groups that they're actually trying to target. Here's a quick recap of the 5 actions that you can and should take to protect your creators and your business today. First is kill the thirst traps. No more bikinis, no more nip slips, no more sexually suggestive imagery. Meta's AI flags bare skin and suggestive poses automatically, and the 10 to 20% false positive rate means that even borderline content will eventually get you. Learn to make content that holds attention on its own merit. Second is to scrub all scammer pattern language from your profiles and your DMs. Meta's 2-element test flags accounts that combine sexually suggestive content with solicitation indicators like DM me or external links or payment references. This also means stop using automated DM platforms like ManyChat until this ban wave is over. Drop any coercive and suggestive copy, bios, captions, ManyChat funnels, DMs. The marginal conversion lift is not worth losing an account. Third, ditch Linktree and Link.me. Self-host your own landing pages. Instagram now follows redirects through aggregators to the final destination. Build a real website per model on a clean domain with no adult keywords. This also lets you add proper link tracking and brand building features. Fourth, use JavaScript redirects instead of server-side redirects. Put your OnlyFans redirect logic in JavaScript on your self-hosted page to avoid detection. And if that sounded like gibberish, just use Claude Code to set this up in under 15 minutes. The 5th tip is segregate your accounts by risk level. Meta tracks device IDs, advertising IDs, SIM info, biometrics, telemetry, not just IPs. So if one account falls, all associated accounts go down with it. Separate high-risk content accounts from low-risk ones using completely different devices and identities, and assume that Meta is smarter than you. Not getting banned is important, but it's just one small part of winning on organic social. If you are playing to win and you want the complete system for organic that I have personally used to build multi-million-dollar earners on OnlyFans, you should check out the course I just released, $1 Million Brands. It's available on my site, facelessfrancis.com, and I could go into a whole spiel, but instead, just take a look at what some of the people who have already taken the course have to say about it. And if you're not interested in the course, no hard feelings. I also have a ton of free resources at facelessfrancis.com/resources, plus an amazing and highly active free Telegram community. No spam, no job posts, just 1,200 plus people who are all sharing value and growing their businesses together. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.